Shalom, it's Rabbi Menashe sharing a pre-Thanksgiving and Erev Shabbat message about this week's Torah portion, Parshat Vayeitzeh. And this week's Torah portion is interesting because it really comes on the heels of a story that was begun in last week's Torah portion in Parshat Toldot, at the end of the Torah portion there, which is the famous story where Yaakov comes before his father, who's blind, and snatches the blessings away before Esav can get it. And Esav, in that Torah portion, is so upset and says, Jacob deceived me 2 times. Jacob himself, as he is thinking about, he's being suggested by his mother to do this plot to take the blessing from his father, says, maybe dad will discover that I'm actually Jacob and not Esau. And Vayiti be'inav kimetateya. Dad is going to think that I am a joker or a lost soul, that I'm doing this act of theft, that I'm lost completely. And so he doesn't get caught and he gets the blessing. But in a way, Jacob said about himself that he's a lost soul. And Esav affirms that he's a deceptive person. And there's a certain quality to Jacob's life that is not so favorable, it's unsavory. And then we turn to our Torah portion, and Jacob's on the run, fleeing from Esav, who wants revenge. And he goes and falls asleep and has a dream. And the dream is, of course, of Jacob's ladder, the Sulam, which is Mutzav Arza, Virosha Magia Shamaima. The ladder is from the earth heading up into the heavens, and Malachei Elokim and the angels of God are Olim Yordim Bo, coming up and down the ladder. And the dream, I think, it's of course so famous, and the image is so powerful. But it's also important for Jacob as a reminder about where he's heading. Because Jacob just came from this story where he was a lost soul. He is probably feeling guilty. He's feeling lost in the world. And he's thinking to himself, what's become of me? This is my life now. I was Ishtam Yoshevo Alim. I was a simple person who would dwell in tents. I lived a nice life of a yeshiva boy. I would study and learn from Shem and Ever, learn from my Avram and Yitzchak. He had influences which were beautiful. And this is what become of me. I'm now running for my life, a thief, deceiving my elderly father, my blind elderly father. Oy vey, that's what you think to yourself in moments like this. What's become of me? And he looks up in the dream. The dream, of course, we know dreams speak to the deeper subconscious speaks to a deeper truth sometimes. So the rabbis say that a dream is a 60th of nevuah, of prophetic insight. There's a truth, there's a divine truth that Jacob taps into as he's there laying down and asleep and dreaming, is that Jacob's been running and deceptive and leading a double life, but actually what's deep inside of him is this desire to climb. There's this desire to come closer to God. And so there's an internal reckoning that Jacob's not so lost as we may be led to believe. And a lot of the Torah portion, in this week's Torah portion and the next week's Torah portion, is Jacob coming in to confront that piece of himself. Of course, it crescendos when he wrestles the angel, which is probably, in one respect, wrestling his own inner demons. And that's what I think is happening in this Torah portion. And a lot of us are feeling lost, wondering what's become of our lives. How could what we're going through now be our reality? And it seems to have become that. And so I hope that we're going to remember our dreams, the dreams where we're rising up. We're trying to lift ourselves, that we remember our better part of ourselves. Let's see some of that divine voice inside of us. Just think about the prophetic message that tells us that we're Olim v'Yordim, we come down, but we also go up. We're rising. And I hope that that's what's going to be some of our thinking this Thanksgiving. I'm sure it's going to be very different for a lot of us. I know it will be. But maybe that's the work we do. The spiritual work of this Thanksgiving is to think about where I can hold on to that essential piece of who I am. I hope it's a fun day, a sweet day for whatever it is, and that we're all trying to rise up together. Happy Thanksgiving and Shabbat Shalom.